JTED-SNAP Pilot Project. JTED is Job Training and Economic Development. SNAP is the Food Assistance Program offered by DHS. And this is a pilot project that we're doing in conjunction with Department of Human Services. And we'll go through the background here as I go through my slide presentations. So I am going to start my slide presentation here. Okay, like I said, this particular project is a partnership between the Department of Human Services and the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Back in November, we submitted an application to the U.S. Department of Agriculture for a pilot project that they're testing through the Food and Nutrition Program, and this was something that was funded through the Farm Bill. What their intention is to fund, they are funding 10 projects to find out innovative ways to incorporate employment and training programs to the SNAP recipients. So the intent is to look at different opportunities of providing services to SNAP recipients and determining best practices, and long-term is to eventually implement these practices into the regular SNAP ENT service programs. So anyway, our application was submitted and we were selected. The state of Illinois received a little over $21.9 million for this project. Department of Human Services is the lead agency on this, and the Department of Commerce is a partner agency, and we're administering this specific RFA. We're going to administer the employment and training section of this. The bulk of the money is going to go to community-based organizations. But the intent of this is, like I said, to test a robust employment training program that will assist unemployed and underemployed SNAP participants. Our intention is to develop basic and technical skills and gain work experience to get good jobs. Also, the intent is to find jobs with local businesses and increase earnings for these participants and work towards self-sufficiency. So this is an employer demand-based employment and training program. The intent is to meet the specific local needs of employers that have mid-skill level jobs that these individuals can be placed in. So ultimately, the intent is to get these individuals off assistance and to become sustainable. The collaborative partners are Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, the Illinois Department of Human Services. We also partnered with ICCB, Illinois Community College Board, and we're actually using their accelerated training model as a model for this opportunity. Community-based organizations, you guys are a very strong and very important partner in this opportunity. And then any adult education, and like I said, community colleges will also be our partners in this. What you see on your screen right now, we are targeting 7 different LWIA regions for this, and this is kind of a breakout of anticipated service levels. This is a pilot project, which means there is a very robust evaluation that's going to go along with this. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture hired a third-party evaluation team that has been working with us on a program design. Mathematica is the lead of that, and you'll be hearing more information about that as we go. But part of this project is that there is an evaluation behind it, which includes random assignment. And this isn't relevant to you guys at this point, but you need to know that what's going to happen with this is DHS is the front door for this project. So they are going to be doing orientations and bringing SNAP recipients into the project. And part of that is determining an expanded group and a core group. So we have to have 5,000 participants total that are going to be a part of this evaluation project. 2,500 will be part of the expanded service group, which is what the CBOs are going to be offering for employment and training. And another 2,500 will fall into what's called the core service group, and that's business as usual within DHS and whatever services they would receive in a normal course of business with DHS. So these numbers we're looking at on the screen right now is a breakout between the different regions. And like I said, this is approximation. This is based upon ABOD, which is able-bodied adults without dependent children. So this is kind of a planning number or a target number for us to start with based upon service numbers in those regions. Okay, what is JTED-SNAP Pilot Project? When we submitted this, we took the JTED project, which is Job Training and Economic Development. We do have many grantees, especially in the Chicago area, that are providers of this. Then JTED is a sector-driven employment and training approach to put individuals in high-paying jobs that are self-sufficient. We're incorporating this and providing this to SNAP recipients, and we're adding enhancements to the model for this specific project, which in turn turns out to be the JTED-SNAP Pilot Project, in which we're providing accelerated basic education and training skills, industry-recognized training opportunities, and work experience, along with supportive services to help facilitate these individuals to get on the road to self-sufficiency. The design of this model, and taking a look at the screen, CBOs are going to be in each of these test tubes. We're going to be looking at throwing a lot of opportunity at these individuals, including goal setting, technical training. We're offering career pathways, and pathway that will lead to mid-skill levels and eventually even higher skill levels if that's chosen. Supportive services, work-based learning, soft skills and inspiration, and academic training. So each of these test tubes on this particular screen is something that will be provided through the CBOs. Now with workforce, and especially with data, there's going to be a lot more interconnectivity and as far as sharing data and providing services throughout an individual's career life. So with CBOs, you guys pretty much can fall into any of these little circles. Human services, in this particular case, a lot of DHS is our key partner with the human services. Unemployment insurance will be working with IDES specifically for the random assignment and finding out wage data as we're evaluating the project. Workforce development, of course, that's our Department of Commerce with the WIOA project. Many CBOs are providers through the WIOA system. Technical training, that's with community colleges and, CBOs that are internal providers. Adult education, and of course, kindergarten through grade 12. We do have providers that also provide opportunities for youth as far as education opportunities. Okay, provider eligibility and overview. We're going to go over the application. Who's the eligible applicants and locations and sectors. So an applicant has to be a current JTED or SNAP ENT CBO provider that has the capacity to leverage state, federal, and local funds for the implementation of this project and has the administrative capacity to run it. We're also going to be looking at other CBOs, including community action agencies that have similar capacity, that can either run programs internally or that can partner with community colleges or other adult education providers. The CBOs must have the capacity to do the following, though. You must have the administrative and physical capacity to be the employer of record. And this is important because we are offering a work experience component with this pilot project. So you have to be the employer of record, which means that you have to have the ability to have a payroll system either internally or if you contract it out to pay the individuals that you're working with, the clients. You have to be a not-for-profit organization with a local board of directors and either directly provide job training services or have established partnerships to provide the training services. You need to have a history of serving the disadvantaged individuals, low-income, low-skilled workers, or those that are unemployed, disadvantaged, including SNAP registrants. And this service includes the capacity for providing a career navigator. With this opportunity, there's going to be funds available to have a career navigator specifically for this opportunity. And that's going to be a very key role. We need somebody that's going to be vested in this project. Mentoring, one of the things that needs to be built into is mentoring services. And supportive services is going to be a large component of this too. We have a maximum of $500 per person in supportive services that is available to each of these clients. And the partnership with other social service organizations for referral and assistance with barriers and interventions. So if you have clients that, say, may have some drug addictions, that you may be able to refer them to other social service agencies to help alleviate those specific barriers. You must have a strong employer engagement, and this is something we'll be looking at. This is a key element to this project. The end result is permanent placement in mid-skill level jobs where these individuals can be self-sustaining. So you have to show and demonstrate that you have that opportunity with your local employers. One of the things that's going to be required in the application is eligibility criteria. Everybody has specific criteria to enter your programs. If you're like, say, in manufacturing and you have a bridge program, you may have, the individual coming to your program may need to at least have a 6th grade reading level. So when we get into the application, I'll show you where this information will be entered. But you have to provide us with your eligibility criteria, because the way this is going to flow is DHS is the front door, and they're going to be referring clients to the CBOs based upon an orientation and an assessment that is done at the local DHS offices. So we need to know what your minimum criteria is for an individual to be referred to you for that training program. And once they are referred, they have to be automatically accepted into this training program. And this is all based upon an orientation that we will go through in what's called random assignment. Must be willing to participate in the SNAP ENT pilot evaluation. Like I said, there is a third-party evaluator that's going to be looking at this. They will be doing site visits, technical assistance visits. They'll be asking questions. They'll be interviewing employers and interviewing SNAP recipients. So you have to be willing to participate with a pilot evaluation. You must be willing to provide employment-related services to program participants if they decide, once they've been assigned to you, and if they decide at some point that this training program isn't necessarily a right fit for them, or if your organization decides that, you know, this looked like an individual that would have succeeded in this program, but that because of some circumstances they're not going to succeed in our training program, you have to be able to provide job placement and services for that individual. So you need to have the capacity to do work readiness and job placement services that may be placements outside of that specific career track that you were entering. And like I said, these individuals are going to be in the treatment group. So once in the treatment group, always in the treatment group, and we don't want to lose these individuals. And I can explain that more as we go through the orientation process of you guys being assigned these individuals. You must also have the capacity to leverage other funding sources for supportive services during this pilot project. And this is for efficiency and sustainability. And there are circumstances that leveraging other funds it could be very key, and this has to do with SNAP eligibility. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but the leverage resources is a very important aspect. And you must be willing to work with other CBOs that are in your area for reassignment. So during the orientation, they have an opportunity to select multiple career tracks and prioritize them. And if your CBO offers, say, only one sector career track and they're assigned to you, but we later realize that maybe they'd be better in a different career track, that we can realign them with a different CBO that's in the pilot project. Okay, the locations that we're going to be serving, we're targeting 7 LWIA locations, and on the screen you can see what those are, and the counties that are targeted. So the SNAP recipients need to come from those specific counties. If you are a CBO that serves those counties, but maybe your main office is outside of those counties, you can still apply. But the services have to be provided to the SNAP recipients that come from those specific counties. And then you also have to have the relationships with the LWIA, the specific LWIA that's related to that county. We're targeting 11 sectors for this pilot project. 9 of them are developed sectors. 9 of them are developed sectors that are already identified through our Illinois Pathways Initiative. And in the RFA and on the screen, there is a link to the pathways, but you can see on the screen the 9 sectors that are targeted by Department of Commerce, and they are being developed through the Illinois Pathways Initiative. There's a lot of good information on the site regarding these sectors, so I recommend you look at this specific site. Two additional growth industries are being targeted, and it's hospitality and administrative support. These are specific sectors that are big with the JTED opportunity. And like in the city of Chicago, hospitality is a huge sector, and it has great wage opportunities and growth potential with that, as does administrative support. So those are two other sectors that are targeted in this opportunity. What's on the screen now is this is just a snapshot of the Illinois Pathways when you go into that site. And you can click on any of these specific sectors and it'll take you into information. And like I said, there's a lot of information on this site regarding each of these pathways when you're looking at the development of your specific projects. There's specific terminology that's going to go along with this project. You'll hear business as usual. And basically what that means is when a SNAP recipient goes through the orientation process and is randomly assigned, and they're assigned to the core group, it means they just go back to the DHS caseworker and they receive services as usual, business as usual, depending upon their specific region and their characteristics as far as if they're mandatory or voluntary. Community-based organizations, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's the individuals on this phone that are going to be applying. The core service group, that is the group after random assignment that is assigned to the core group, and those are the ones that are referred to the business as usual and work directly with their IDHS local case manager on services. The expanded service group are those that after random assignment are assigned to the CBOs. So the expanded service group are the individuals that you guys will receive, the CBOs will receive for extensive employment and training services. Illinois WorkNet is a very key partner in this. It's going to be our web portal, and it's where you're going to have all of your resources, your guides, your tools, all of the customer information is going to be in there. We're going to have downloads from DHS on key elements regarding customer data, so we have the data consistent with what's in the DHS systems. And this is going to be your go-to tool for managing the program. And the JTED, once again, that's a Job Training and Economic Development program that's administered to the Department of Commerce. That is a model that is used to establish this pilot project. And then JTED-SNAP eligibility. Eligibility is based upon the orientation. So these individuals will be going through an orientation with DHS, and I'll be showing you that process here in just a second. But eligibility is based upon the orientation of going through that. Then we're going to have a team review to make sure that we're putting these customers in the right fit program. And then that will lead to the actual random assignment after that. So to the best of our ability, we're going to try and assign these people to the appropriate CBOs based upon the information we have. And then Mathematica, that is the lead organization that is responsible for the research of this, and they're also responsible for the random assignment. Participants are unemployed and underemployed SNAP recipients. And then random assignment, if you're not familiar with random assignment, this is Department of Commerce did this with what's called their ATOM project. But what it is, it's a way to do testing by having a group, and part of them are receiving one service and the other part is receiving the business as usual service. So random assignment will happen prior to you receiving these individuals. Now we're going to go through the recruitment steps. I'm going to walk through this, and then maybe we can take a chance to look at questions real quick. But let's go through the recruitment steps so you have an idea of what this process flow is from the local DHS office to your organization. Now IDHS, like I said, is going to be the front door of this. So they are going to be responsible for recruiting. Their first level of recruiting are going to be new SNAP recipients that are coming into their office that are eligible. The second level will be recertifications. Right now they have to recertify every 6 months for eligibility. It is going to a year. So the second level of recruiting will be recertifications. And then the third level of recruiting will just be walk-ins or individuals that hear about this project through word of mouth. We're going to be putting marketing materials in all of the regions that are targeted, like in the local workforce investment offices and the DHS offices and areas where these individuals that we're targeting will be at, libraries. And of course, word of mouth. We've already had several calls from individuals interested in getting involved in this project. So once we have these individuals recruited, they'll be invited to an orientation in which they'll be receiving information regarding the training opportunity. They'll receive information of what the random assignment is and what the evaluation entails. And then like I said, they'll be receiving information based upon the training programs that are being available in their area in this pilot project. They will have to complete an application. They will also complete what's called a NOTS-Key 21st Century Skills Assessment, so we will at least have some baseline information on their capacity for their reading and math and employability. And then once they complete this orientation, which could take as much as 4 hours, the NOTS-Key can take up to 2 hours. It's a proctor test that could take up to 2 hours. Once they complete all of this assignment in the orientation, we will be taking a look at the results of that, and there will be a team evaluation to determine the right fit for CBOs and the right fit for the training program. Once that right fit is made, then they will come back to the DHS office and they will have to sign a consent form, which means that they are willing to participate in this evaluation study. And then they will complete the Mathematicas application, and then they will be randomly assigned. So they're going to have it's like a lottery. They'll have a 50-50% chance of either being put in the expanded service group, which is referred to the CBOs, or they will go to the core service group, which is business as usual, and they will work with a DHS case manager on the services that are available in the business as usual environment. But they will still be a part. The core service group is still part of the study, and they will have to complete some surveys at some point. I think it's 12 months and 36 months that they will complete surveys, and they will be followed up to see what their progression was based upon their core services. Now, this is more of a kind of a freak you out moment for the DHS staff compared to you, but this is just to give you an example of potentially how many SNAP recipients may have to be reached out to get to the 5,000 level that we need. We need 2,500 placed in the core service and 2,500 placed in the expanded service group. And that's expanded. That 2,500 is what's coming to the CBOs. So this is a massive effort. It's a massive project. It's exciting because this could potentially change, like I say, the way employment and training services are going to be offered to SNAP recipients. But this is a huge effort, and once again, this is a pilot effort, so it's going to be exciting as we go through, and things will adapt and change as we're moving along, because that's the intent of the pilot, is to adapt as we go to meet specific needs and make it run smoothly. This is an example of some marketing tools that will be used. You'll be seeing these probably out in the field to get individuals in, and I just wanted to show you, where we're at as far as the marketing side. A lot of this will be implemented through the DHS office, but these may be some brochures and flyers that you'll have available too if you have SNAP recipients that come into your office. You will have to refer them to the local DHS office to go through the orientation, and there's no guarantee that they would actually come back to your office. They may be referred to a different CBO based upon their career choice. But you guys are definitely another resource for marketing this opportunity. Your CBO role in recruitment and placement. The primary thing we need from you guys is what your acceptability requirements are for academic and physical baseline. So we need to know what the minimum requirements are for these SNAP recipients to be referred to your specific training program. If you're offering more than one sector training, it will be different for each of those sectors. You may have you could have, and you very well will have a different baseline requirement going into healthcare than maybe hospitality. You're going to have to collaborate with the DHS, FCRC regional administrators, and the case managers, and then you'll also need to collaborate with other CBOs in your area, specifically if we do realignment of these individuals. Once a client is referred to you, there has to be immediate engagement with them. After they complete the orientation, and then they sit down with their case manager and they complete the Mathematica application, and the caseworker hits a random assign button, the client will know immediately if they're in the expanded group or the core group. If they're in the expanded group, then an email will go to the CBO's career navigator to let them know this individual has been assigned to them and that they need to reach out to them immediately to start engagement. The client, the SNAP recipient, will also receive information from their DHS caseworker as far as who the career navigator is, who the organization is, what the phone number is, what the address is, so they can also reach out too. But there needs to be immediate engagement with these clients. You could potentially require more assessments, and we anticipate that there will be assessments that you're going to require at your agency. But you also need to be able to provide activities prior to being placed in an educational component. So if they cannot be placed directly into an educational component once they're referred to you, if you're working on, say, cohorts, and the next cohort won't start, say, for 4 weeks, you still have to have the capacity to be able to do some work with these guys, whether it be work readiness skills, whether you put them in work experience, but you have to engage them immediately. And for SNAP recipients that are mandatory recipients, they have to have at least 80 hours of activity a month. So you need to be able to engage these individuals in activities once they're referred to you. And that's part of what needs to be in your program design. Okay, why don't we take a real quick break and see if we have any specific questions. And let me see if I can minimize my screen here. Let's see here. Okay, one of the questions we've got is, what is the application processing time? I guess my question would be, is this the application that the JTED-SNAP recipient is completing? The orientation is a day orientation, and then within that week, they will get back with a DHS caseworker. So the processing time for the SNAP recipient will be relatively quick. I'm hoping no more than 2 weeks from the time of the orientation to when their assignment is. So if that's what you were asking, our approval process, these applications, or the request for application from the CBO's 2D CEO was due October 28th, and then we're anticipating a January 1st start date of these projects. Okay, is overall grant coordination part of the admin cost? I guess it depends upon what you mean by the overall grant coordination. Your admin costs, we have 5% cap on that. We'll get into that in the budget. But your admin costs generally deal with your payroll, your executive director, your finance office. If you're dealing with employers and collaborating with employers, or anything that is dealing with a SNAP recipient, would be the career navigating costs. Okay, if you are assigned 40 clients and they do training and placement, takes place, what are the other main activities that the CBO does on a daily basis? Well, the activities would be basically the training component of it. We want these individuals placed in sector training. Some of this could be based upon bridge programming, so if they need basic skill level training, they could be in a bridge program, and we'll get into that here in a sector in the program model. They can be in adult education, say working their way to their GED. They can be placed in low-level industry recognized certifications, so like in the healthcare, you could be working with them to get their CNA license. But we want that progression to continue on, because eventually we want these individuals to be in mid-skill level jobs. So that's the training component. Other components of it would be work readiness, training. You could potentially be working with them on specific barriers to employment that they have. There is a work experience component of this, so they could be working with an employer that is, the intention is that that's going to be related to this career sector that you're training them in, so they can be placed in a work experience component while they're also receiving education training. Okay, the PowerPoint mentions that matching funds must be leveraged for support services. Can you please speak more specifically about the expectations of leveraged funds? Leveraged funds are important in this particular aspect because with this project, when you have a SNAP recipient, an eligible SNAP recipient in the project, they're eligible for the term of the project, but there could be an instance where a SNAP recipient is no longer eligible for benefits, the SNAP benefits, and there could be many reasons for that. One of them could be the fact that they didn't recertify on a timely fashion, so they dropped off eligibility for SNAP. Some of it could be there's a change in their household status that could knock them off SNAP benefits. And unfortunately, the policy design of this is that if they're off SNAP benefits, then they cannot receive services from this project anymore. So I am hoping this isn't going to be a huge issue for us in many cases, because based upon SNAP policy, if you put them in a training program, say with a community college, and you pay their tuition, and they're still a SNAP recipient, eligible SNAP recipient during that time, and you've passed the time where you can get any reimbursement for the training project, and after that time, they fall off as being a SNAP recipient because of, say, recertification, they can still continue in that training program because that's a cost that has been obligated and incurred. They can continue with the training program. Now, on the back side, say you've placed somebody in employment and you're working with them to retain their employment, you have 90 days of supportive services you can provide them at that point too, even if they're not eligible for SNAP benefits at that period of time. Where we could run into issues is in that middle gap where their training is paid for and it's already obligated. They're not eligible for SNAP benefits at this time because they didn't recertify, but they need supportive services, say, for transportation. And at that point, that would not be allowed under this grant because they're not a eligible SNAP recipient at that point. So that's where you may need to have some leverage funds to help support them at that period of time. Now, they can get back on SNAP. They can go back in and they can get recertified on SNAP and get back on their benefits. But this is something where a career navigator in this project is going to be very key, and they have to be very invested in this project, and they have to work hand in hand with these clients so that they know their specific status. So that's an example of leverage funds. And leverage funds can be, it can be, state money, it can be foundation money. They can be co-enrolled, so if you have them co-enrolled in a different type of a training program, as long as the charges are very distinct and we can follow who's paying for what costs, they can be co-enrolled. So I'm going to click back on and go back into our program design now. So the program design for this, our targeted participants are going to fall in potentially three categories. Category one is employed individuals but have low skills and low wage, so the skill and wage deficits, and they're incumbent workers. So these individuals are working 30 hours or more a week. They're still eligible for SNAP benefits because of their income and eligibility and because of their eligibility requirements. But these are not considered to be work registrants. So we can only serve 15% of the total number of individuals in this opportunity can be non-work registrants. So these individuals are classified as non-work registrants. These individuals volunteer for services, so there's no sanctions against their SNAP benefits if they don't participate, and they're considered to be what's called volunteers. These individuals work with a local employer. The intent of this is to be able to hopefully work them up with that employer to a higher level, like say a certification and then a promotion or a higher wage bracket within that employer. There will be instances where they'll move employers potentially too, but the intent is to try and keep them with that local employer and try to move them up within that employer's organization. These people will be evaluated based upon their job retention and the worker's increased earnings over a period of time. And with the JTED-SNAP pilot project, it is going to be a performance-based project. So performance is going to be based upon enrolled in training, completing training, retention, and their wage benefit increase. The other target is, we call it Category 1, but kind of B, but these are individuals who are employed, but I would say marginally employed. They'll be working less than 30 hours. These individuals must be work registrants, and they have a requirement of at least 80 hours a week of activity, but no more than 120. You cannot mandate that they do more than 120 hours of activities a month. They can volunteer to. If they choose to do more activities than 120, they can choose to do that. The SNAP recipient can choose to do that, but the CBO cannot make them do more than 120. And what this means then is, say if they're working 15 hours a month, 15 hours a week with an employer, and then you're incorporating an education component between the work that they're doing with the employer and their education component and their other activities that cannot exceed 120 hours. But they're required to have at least a minimum of 80 hours of activity within a month. In this particular case, you're going to work with local employers and provide employer-driven curriculum and training. The training could be potentially with the employer that they have low hours with, or it could be in a totally different career sector choice. An example might be if somebody's working in the fast food industry and they want to go into manufacturing. They continue with their job in fast food, they need that income, but then you're also working with them to earn entry-level credentials, say in manufacturing. Or an example might be if somebody's working in healthcare and they're working in, say, the maintenance in a nursing home, but they actually want to enter the healthcare sector, so they want to become like a CNA and then like a respiratory therapist or LPN. So you would work with them to gain those credentials in that sector. This will be evaluated on the training and earned credentials, the gainful employment into a self-sufficiency career pathway, and retention. And once again, the performance will be based on enrolled in training, completing training, employed, and retained. And what I mean by employed is employed like full-time employment, which would be 30 hours or more of employment. And it could be with the current employer or placed with a different employer. And then the third category is Category 2, which is the unemployed SNAP work registrants. This is probably your long-term unemployed, multiple barriers to employment. And what we're targeting in this particular area is the ABODs, able-bodied adults without dependent children. Once again, they have an 80-hour minimum requirement, 120-hour maximum that you can require, but they can volunteer to do more than 120 hours of activities in a month. These are SNAP work registrants that are, like I said, long-term unemployed and significantly unemployed with multiple barriers. We're going to establish training programs either internally or through external training providers, including community colleges. And many of the community colleges have what's called the ICAP programs, which are great resources to collaborate with for your training. And then the negotiated performance will be based upon enrolled, completing training, employed, and retained. Now, your partners for this, of course, is going to be Illinois Department of Human Services. That's going to be our front door. This is who you're going to get your referrals through. And then you're going to have a long-term relationship with them, too, because they are going to need information as far as their activity of these clients and that they're staying engaged in activities. A lot of that is to make sure that they continue with their SNAP benefits because of the policy requirements for the SNAP benefits. Department of Commerce, we're, of course, going to be responsible for getting the CBOs on through this RFA. We work with SIU with Illinois workNet, and that's going to be very key for all of our reporting, all of our monitoring, all of our data sources. We'll be responsible for the oversight of all the training activities at the CBOs for the monitoring and technical assistance provided. Employers is very key. You need to have your employer partners because the end result is jobs, and so self-sustaining jobs in mid-wage career sectors. And then education and workforce partners. We want you partnering with your local workforce investment areas, specifically to allow for individuals, if they want to go into higher level training opportunities, that they can seamlessly be referred to the WIOA system, and then potentially if they receive a certification, they can go for a higher level certification that could be paid through the WIOA program, but that has to be a seamless process. Okay, some of the important program elements. The CBO that's administering must provide career pathway opportunities to SNAP recipients referred by the DHS caseworker. There must be, once again, immediate engagement and enrollment into the agency's training programs after the referral. You must meet specific skill needs of the local employers and sector. It has to be demand-driven, and we want stackable credentials as a result of this. Address skill deficiencies of SNAP participants and the barriers to participate. So you have to have the capacity to potentially, like I said, partner with other community-based organizations or social service programs that could help with alleviating barriers. Because we want to make sure that these individuals that are referred to you, they are part of the treatment group. Once in the treatment group, always in the treatment group. If we lose these individuals, that will have a negative impact on the results of our project here as it's being evaluated. So we want to keep these individuals in so they can complete the training and the ability to place and retain these individuals or enroll them in higher education. There will be a career plan that is going to be in Illinois WorkNet, and everybody's going to have a career plan. And so the career navigator will be responsible for establishing this career plan for the people that are referred to them. And once again, we're going to have your acceptance requirements. You're going to have to tell us what your acceptance requirements are, so we're making the appropriate referrals to you. If more than one sector is being proposed, if you're submitting an application and you want to serve, say, 3 or 4 different sectors and provide 3 or 4 different training programs, that's fine. We just want you to rank them in priority because, especially in the Chicago area, we want to make sure we have good coverage. We want to make sure we have good coverage of sectors and logistically that the programs are in areas where the SNAP recipients can access them. And we're going to provide a schedule of your proposed training. We'll go through that real quick when we get into the application. And what I strongly recommend, we have those 3 categories, the Category 1, which are the gainfully employed, the Category 1B, which is the marginally employed, and the Category 2, that's the unemployed. I recommend that you target potentially all 3 of the categories. Category 1, only 15% of those that are eligible to participate in this program can come from Category 1, and those are non-work registrants. So it's to your benefit to target potentially all 3 of those sectors when you're writing your application. Okay, so let's discuss what priorities we're going to offer. Now, these individuals, especially your Category 2 unemployed, long-term unemployed, will probably or potentially need bridge programs. So bridge programs is going to be a priority in the training design. And when we get these applications, those that have bridge programs, it will be a priority. Priority will also be given to those that have established relationships with the local workforce and opportunity system. Like I said, once again, we want to have that capacity to have a seamless movement of clients to higher level training opportunities, and so we really want to see those relationships and strong relationships with the local workforce investment opportunity system. Priority is going to be given to those applicants that can leverage funds and blend funds to support the project for efficiency and sustainability. And then the example I gave, like I said, specifically in supportive services, if there for some reason has to be a gap of eligibility for a SNAP recipient, that there is resources to help them get through that gap so they can get back on SNAP benefits and be eligible. Priority is going to be given to those that have that demonstrate a strong support system to engage and maintain participants in training through wraparound services for alleviating barriers. If you have mentoring groups, peer exchange groups, different opportunities to keep these individuals engaged. Peer exchange groups work well too as far as the peers keeping each other accountable and engaged in programs. When we're evaluating, we're going to give additional points for employer partnerships agreements. Good quality employer partnerships are critical to this. And the ability to create new partnerships with employers as this project goes along is critical also. I realize that we're giving you a short span of time. These are due October 28th, and you may not be able to get all of the employer partnerships agreements prior to that. Get what you can, and then at least list out the other employers that you plan on partnering with and that you're working on agreements with. So provide us as much as you can as far as agreements, and then those that you're still working with, at least give us an idea of who they, let us know who they are and that you're working with them and that you're working on those agreements. And of course, points will be given that you're targeting the regionally demand occupations and sectors that are in demand in your region. The project model, we based it on the ICCB ICAPS model. There's 3 models of this, and another thing that we're incorporating is the work experience component of that. So, and what we want as a result is industry recognized credentials as part of this. So we're going to walk through the ICAPS model here real quick. What the model consists of, Model 1 is the bridge programs. So you're looking at adult education, ESL bridge programs. So these individuals are 8th grade or less education levels, functioning levels. And the bridge programs, Model 1 is especially important probably for your Category 2, those are long-term unemployed. And like I said, the bridge model is definitely a priority for this program. Now, you can partner with somebody. You can partner with a community college, and ICCB is providing us a list of all the bridge programs that are available in the state of Illinois and also all the ICAP programs that are available in the state of Illinois. They will be posted on workNet hopefully sometime this week. So that would be a resource that I would definitely reach out to for bridge programs if there's one in your area to collaborate and partner with training providers on that. Your Model 2 is dealing with career and technical education training and delivered in an accelerated Teen Top format. So clients earn either their high school equivalency certifications, upgrade their basic skills, earn community college basic certifications, and obtain industry-recognized credentials at this point. Some of this could be, like I said, getting somebody their GED, and then from that point, starting with entry-level sector certifications, industry-recognized certifications. Once again, the ICAPS is what falls in Model 2, so that will be posted on the workNet site, all the ICAPS that are available, and I do recommend you look at that as a partnering opportunity. And then Model 3 deals with a higher level credentials, so you're looking at the higher level, and Model 3 would target Category 1 individuals who are gainfully employed but lacking the skills to reach a higher level job or higher level wages. So this may be an individual who's working in manufacturing and has welding but needs to get a CNC license, or in any other manufacturing industry recognized credentials to move them up within that employer or to an employer that's going to provide them a mid-level wage job opportunity. Individuals could go from Model 1 to Model 3. There's instances where they may be, basic ESL. They may need some ESL bridge programming, and then they're also receiving Model 3 services. They can go from Model 1 to Model 2, so they may be in a bridge program at the same time that they're receiving career and technical education services. We just wanted this to be a seamless process between these. And at the same time, you're going to be providing, this should actually be work experience, but they're going to be receiving work experience, supportive services, and then the career navigator is a very key component of this to keep track of the individuals. So our outcomes are basically self-sustaining jobs in related career pathways. And another opportunity is higher education. So a seamless referral to them to the WEOS system or education systems where they're going to receive higher credentials and even higher level employment opportunities. In your download, there is the ICAP. There's a PowerPoint that goes into a little bit more detail on the ICAPS model. So when you're downloading it, definitely take a look at that. We're not going to go into that just because of time constraints, but take a look at that, the ICAPS model. And then once again, we have the FAQ. Anytime you have any questions, please put it out on the Illinois WorkNet and the FAQ, and we will have those responded to as quickly, within 24 hours probably, so that we can get it out to everybody. But what's on the screen right now is what's in the Illinois Career Pathways Initiative. Incorporating this with the JTED model, number one here, essential knowledge and skills. This is kind of where we're at with the DHS. This is the DHS intake process, is the way I would define that. Where you guys, the CBOs, are going to be is really in section 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to be looking at bridge programs and offering the bridge programs, and then career pathways that are entry-level pathways into occupations with stackable credentials that can lead to eventually higher level education components, like in the medical field, you could be, going to like an RN type of certification long term, and that would be, referrals to the WIA program. But stackable credentials, you're looking at 3 and 4, based upon the timelines that we have for this, is stackable credentials that can get them to higher level education opportunities. Okay, part of the services you guys are going to be providing, once these individuals are referred to you, I'm sure there's going to be some screening and assessments that are going to be required at your CBO. Your case management, this is going to be your career navigator. It's going to be a very key component in this program, that you have somebody that is very invested into this program and is taking the care of the JTED-SNAP recipients to heart and really walking them through this process and helping them navigate this whole career process and getting them the supportive services, helping them with the barrier relief, and then getting them into the training programs. Peer groups, once again, I think peer groups are they're a very good opportunity to kind of self-motivate, having individuals work together to keep them accountable. Supportive services, there's going to be some pretty substantial supportive services offered through this. Like I said, we have I think a cap of $500 per client on supportive services that can help with transportation. If there's anything that they need as far as maybe child care or that type of supportive services. And then employment and retention services is very key. The end result is we want these people in full-time employment and retained. As far as the outcomes, and I kind of went over this already, we're looking at, for Category 1A, enrolled in training, completing training, employment retention, and wage and benefit increase. For Category 1B, enrolled in training, completing training, employed, and retained. And once again, these people are marginally employed, so the employment would be for 30 hours or more in a wage-sustaining job. For Category 2, you're looking at enroll in training, completing training, job placement, and employment and retention. Some other things that we'll be evaluating is going to be, for Category 1A and B, promotions and entered higher level training and credential training. So receiving those higher level credentials or, a higher level education, maybe they're going to get their bachelor's, so education credentials. Category 2, once again, is going to be entering higher level credentials is what we're going to be looking at as far as an additional outcome with that. And once again, we do have this evaluation. This is part of a pilot project. So there will be a national evaluation process, and there will be 2 surveys that will be required at 12 and 36 months. And once again, the national evaluation team will be very instrumental, and they'll be working with you guys too as far as coming out and doing site visits. We're going to get into the budget, but at this point I'm going to see if Chuck Dooley is available, and I'm going to have him go through some of the financial responsibilities.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Chuck. Let me get your screen. Natasha, I may need for you to maximize. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. I'm going to briefly go over the fiscal requirements of the grants. Just highlight a few key points. One thing I want to mention is that these are federal funds from the USDA, so the federal regulations apply. The federal regulations that apply to these grants would be the new uniform guidance not the old OMB circular. So that's something you want to be aware of, because there are changes made, updates made from by the new uniform guidance. In addition to the federal regulations, you have the terms and conditions of the grant agreement. For example, the grant agreement requires that you submit either, a standard audit and your single audit, if applicable, no later than 9 months after the period audited. If a single audit is not required, you don't meet the $750,000 threshold, you have to submit a letter stating that no single audit is required. Fund accounting is required. Your accounting system must segregate grant revenue and expenditures in order to be able to generate a trial balance or P&L or income statement for the grant only to support costs that are reported to DCEO. This is an example of a simplified trial balance. It shows expenditures under the debit column and grant revenue under the credit column. If your chart of accounts doesn't align with our grant line items, you'll have to submit a quarterly trial balance crosswalk that breaks down your accounts by our line items. For example, salary and fringe, that could include admin wages, career navigator wages, and participant work experience wages. Subgrantees, there are requirements related to subgrantees. You have to get approval from the department. Any terms and conditions of the grant agreement that apply to you would also apply to your subrecipients. And a new requirement is that the uniform guidance requires a pre-award risk assessment that includes checking the system for awards management to see if the subrecipient is excluded or disqualified from federal financial assistance. Internal controls, there must be adequate internal controls to safeguard grant funds and assets. Examples of internal controls would include written policies and procedures, bank reconciliations that are reviewed and approved by someone other than the person doing the bank rec, segregation of duties, proper approval of disbursements. Expenditure of funds. Funds must be expended to perform the tasks set forth in the scope of work. Another thing to keep in mind is that the grant agreement requires that any excess revenue over expenditures be refunded to the department, or if grant funds have not been expended or legally obligated in accordance with the grant budget or scope of work, there could be disallowed costs that have to be refunded to the department. Any balance of funds unearned at the end of the grant period must be refunded. One important thing to keep in mind is that the grant revenue or earnings will be based on performance benchmarks like enrolled in training, completed training, job retention. However, your expenditures will be based on your actual costs incurred for the program, including career navigator wages, admin wages, and so on. But nevertheless, your grant expenditures cannot be less than your grant revenue. The cost principle that would apply would be from the federal regulations. Costs must be necessary and reasonable. One thing to keep in mind, costs that would not be allowable under this grant would include food, alcohol, entertainment expenses, gifts, donations, fundraising, and promotional materials. Fines, penalties, and interest costs are prohibited. And one more thing to keep in mind for nonprofits and state and local governments is that state unemployment tax for participants in work experience would not be allowable because Illinois has a SUDA exemption for nonprofits and state and local governments. Costs may be disallowed for duplicative costs incurred for clients who are co-enrolled into one program. Although I don't anticipate that being a problem, more likely than not, you'll be using leverage resources for participants who are co-enrolled in order to provide services under the program. For example, Tammy mentioned that there's a $500 cap under the program for supportive services, so you may be supplementing that with leverage resources from WIOA or other programs for co-enrolled participants. Another thing I want to emphasize is that you cannot, for facilities that you own, you cannot charge the market rate for rent to the grant. You can only charge depreciation or other costs that were incurred, like maintenance or property taxes. Another thing I want to emphasize is that the new uniform guidance no longer allows use allowances for federal grants. So you can no longer use use allowances to recover costs for facilities you own. You would be limited to depreciation or other costs. Cost allocation must be based on actual activity of a base that reflects benefits received. There must be a written cost allocation plan. You cannot use budgeted percentages from your grant application budget or grant revenue as for allocation purposes. If there are any budget variations, you should refer to the grant agreement. You may have to get approval for any variances within a line item, but you definitely cannot exceed the total amount of the grant award without doing a grant modification. Program income. Any program income or revenue in excess of cost must be either expended on the grant or returned to the department. And then the last thing I want to talk about is monitoring. We anticipate that we'll be conducting on-site fiscal monitoring of all of these grants. In addition, I also want to point you, like Tammy mentioned earlier, to the FAQs on the Illinois WorkNet website. There's also a link to the FAQs in the RFA. There are already questions out there regarding, for example, and Tammy mentioned this earlier, participants who become ineligible during the program. So you definitely want to look at the FAQs on Illinois WorkNet. And that covers the fiscal requirements. So I'll hand it back to Tammy, unless there are any other questions.
Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate that. For those of you that participated in the sessions in person, we're covering a lot of information in a short period of time. We really went into a lot more in-depth information at those sessions. But we wanted to give you as much information as we can in a condensed time. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here. As far as the budget, we have 5 line items. So we're looking at training, participant wages, supportive services, career navigation, and administration. I'm not going to go through and read these, but just take a look at these in your budgeting, your training costs or anything related specifically with training. Participant wages, the one thing, and I think Chuck said too, that we want to point out is with participant wages, you pay FICA and workman's comp. So this line item will include the employer or the SNAP recipient's wages, and it also include the FICA and workman's comp of the employer. This information will also be tracked in Illinois WorkNet. We'll have a payroll download. If you've done a summer youth program, you're familiar with that. So we'll be tracking this information in WorkNet also. And we look at around an average of $1,600 average cost per participant and wages. So once again, supportive services, it's $500. We looked at an average cost of about $220 per client. This is basically for your budgeting purposes as you're putting your application together, so you have some guidelines as far as what's a budget where. Administration is at 5% cap on that. What we want you to do in the application is this is a 2-year opportunity. It's going to start January 1st and go through December 31st of 2017. In the application, we want to know what your capacity is. So based upon your current structure, you've got other programs that you run and everything, what's your capacity to administer this program? There's no maximum or minimum on what you can ask for as far as wages. But we want to know what can you do. We have 2,500 clients that have to go through this program. So what is your capacity to serve these clients, and then what sectors are you going to be able to serve them in, training sectors? So for program requirements, you have to comply obviously with federal and state laws. You have to comply with federal and state fiscal requirements and allowable costs. There's going to be reporting requirements. If you worked with us before, we have a quarterly report that's due, the DGR, along with a trial balance that's due that Chuck had talked about. There will be additional reports that will be due based upon the evaluation team, and there will be monitoring and technical assistance that will be done through DCEO and also through the evaluation team. They'll be on site to do some evaluation. We are going to have a test period, so we're probably looking at from January to maybe the end of March to be a test period. A lot of this, like I said, this is a pilot project, and this is work in progress, and it's going to shift depending upon how things are operating in the field. So January through March, we will have a period of time where we're going to be testing the orientation process. We're going to be testing the referral process to you guys. We're going to be looking at how they're coming into you and where drop-off is. Are we losing clients somewhere along the way? And then once they get to you, how is that engagement? Are they being engaged right away? You know, how are they being put into these training programs? Are we having any gaps in service? You know, is there supportive services that are needed, you know, more in specific areas? So we're going to evaluate the program. And then probably in April, we'll be looking at a full implementation at that point, where we'll really start rolling out, and hopefully we'll have all the bugs worked out in the first part of it. So like I said, once again, this is a moving project. It's going to transition based upon how elements are working in the ground. We will also have a task force once the CBOs are selected. We're going to create a task force with different individuals from DHS and Department of Commerce and community-based organizations and training providers to really drive this and to, you know, make changes. And we want them to make this as efficient and be able to move individuals through a training program and keep them and really make a difference. So the end result is that this is a best practice, and this is something that's implemented long-term. I know I had mentioned this at one of the training sessions that our federal FNS lead for this wants to see Illinois start to tap more of the match money. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has a 50% match for employment training services. So if the CBO, like one of you guys have put money into this that's from foundation money or even state money, like if, you know, if there's money that's available through JTED that helps to support this program, we can go after a 50% match from Department of Agriculture. We are setting up the budgets so that we can track matching dollars. We're not implementing, you know, this is a long-term implementation, so that for sustainability that we can look at actually accessing some of that matching money that's available on the federal side for the long-term implementation of this project. So there's a lot of variables we're working on and trying to establish to make this a best practice and to make this sustainable after this pilot's over. But so anyway, there will be pre-awards surveys that will be required, and then of course monitoring. There's going to be fiscal and programmatic monitoring that will be completed. Things that you need to submit with your application: we need a copy of the organization's not-for-profit approval letter. We need your W-9 form. You need to submit a cost allocation plan, a list of your board of directors, you know, memorandum of understanding or partnership agreements, if you'd rather call them that, with your employers, as many as you can possibly get. I know, like I said, unfortunately, this is a tight time constraint for you guys to put this together. So if you have employer partners but you haven't gotten an agreement from them yet, at least list them out so that we know who they are. And we will want to see those, you know, eventually once we establish grants with you. Memorandums of understanding with your training providers. So if you're working with a community college or if you're working with an ICAP project, working with ICCB to indicate, you know, what their role is going to be as a training provider. Working with the local DHS offices, you know, so that you guys are on the same page and establishing memorandums of understanding, so working agreements with your local DHS office. Many of you probably already do work with them and know who these individuals are. If you don't, then you need to definitely reach out to the local DHS office. And we're reaching out from them on our end of it too, so that they're aware that they're going to be contacted. And any additional attachments that you feel are going to benefit your application, please include those also. Okay, we're going to work through this quickly, but some tools that are going to be available for you. Illinois WorkNet is going to be the driving force as far as resources. Manuals, any information you need will be available through WorkNet. WorkNet's going to have a dashboard that you're going to be able to use and monitor. Your career navigators should be looking at this daily. So this is an example. Anything in yellow, it's in progress. Green is good, and then red is like a stopping point. But you'll be able to track the SNAP recipients' progress through the systems. And DHS offices will have this also for the orientation side. So there's going to be ample tools available for you. The Individual Service and Training Employment Plan, there's going to be a universal employment plan, and modules will be added to it based upon each program. But this employment plan is something that everybody will have to have, and it'll be available through workNet. This is something long-term will be accessible for other projects too. So like if you're in WIOA, you will have one individual plan, and then modules can be added based upon whatever funding source or whatever programs, providing resources to it. And then once again, you're going to have a dashboard that's going to show you where they're at as far as in their academic skills, technical skills, work-based learning. We're going to be providing training, a lot of training. So we're looking at probably, at least 3 training sessions up north and then training sessions across the state. We'll be providing training for DHS staff and CBOs together. There'll be training, as we get into it just for CBOs. Down the road, we're going to be looking at webinars. We'll have weekly calls to get started to make sure that we're all progressing and trying and eliminate any issues or problems up front that we can. So there's going to be plenty of resources available to you and tools available to you. Like I said, ongoing support. We're going to have training webinars for regional managers, caseworkers, and CBOs. We'll probably start out with weekly calls with regional managers and with the career navigators and with the DHS caseworkers. So I'm not going to read through this. This is in the RFA. But for our selection process, we're looking at application information and capacity is going to be 35% of the total point value. And you can look through that and see what's going to be measured based upon that. Quality of the work plan is 45% of the total score as we're evaluating these. And like I said, bridge programs, if you look down there, bridge programs is a priority for this. One of the questions that I believe was, do we have to have all 3 modules? You do not have to submit your plan with all 3 modules. But if you're especially serving the Category 2 unemployed, bridge programs are significant. And you don't have to provide them internally, but you can have partners that are going to work with you on bridge programs. But it's not required that you write in all 3 models in your application. So take a look at the review and selection process. Costs and outcomes are going to be 20% of the weighted determination on making the selection. Once again, these are due by 5 p.m. on October 28th. You submit them to the JTED-SNAP mailbox that's right here on the screen, and it's also in the RFA. Applications, they need to be submitted. The application that you're going to complete, I'll pull it up here in a second. It has organization name and it's dash JTED-SNAP pilot project application. It's a Word document. You're going to submit that document as is, as a Word document. And then anything else, there's a signature page that's required. Any of your attachments can be submitted as one document, like as a PDF, preferably with an addendum explaining what's included in that PDF. But we need the actual application as a Word document because then we take the information and put it into a database, and then that's how we produce reports based upon that. So please submit that as that, and then anything else it can be a PDF as a separate document. Once again, you must agree to comply with the SNAP E&T pilot evaluation. And then any questions you have, please refer them to the JTED-SNAP frequently asked questions page in Illinois WorkNet, and we will respond to those. We want to make sure everybody gets the same response. Okay, that's it for this pilot presentation. You guys are very key to this, and we are really excited. This is a great opportunity. This could be a driving force for future training programs for SNAP recipients. And this could really be a game changer, I think, and getting people off of SNAP benefits and getting them into, mid-level wage jobs and sustainable. So you guys are very important, very key to the success of this opportunity. I'm going to just go through this really quick. I know we've spent a lot of time online already. I'm just going to point out some key components in the application. Okay. If you're familiar with DCEO, you know we have a uniform application, and if you've completed an application before, this is real similar to what you've had to complete to begin with. So most of these sections are universal regardless of what you're applying for. Under 3.3, brief description of the project, please make this concise but very descriptive, because that will be one of the first things that we'll put in our Access database as far as what you're doing. So if you're offering 3 or 4 different sector approaches, make sure that you're concise, but you're including everything that you're doing. Section 4, your scope of work. This is high-level tasks of the project itself. So we just want you to explain your high-level tasks. Section 5 is your performance measures. You probably will have numbers in all 3 of these if you're serving all of the categories, Category 1, A and B, and Category 2. One thing I want to point out is your performance measures are going to be based upon referrals. So you really have no control on the intake process. So this is going to be definitely a negotiated area for us and you, and it will also depend upon what you receive. And with that being said, when we do the grants, we're going to look at doing 1-year budgets. We don't want to, if you come in for $500,000 for a 2-year project, we'll probably look at what that 1-year budget would be and provide that in your initial grant. We want to have a little bit more control on the cash internally, because you do not have any ability to affect the referral process. So we want to make sure that we're aligning the money where it needs to be. But like I said, in this application, we want to know your capacity, what you can do. So for the budget, you're going to provide us a 2-year budget based upon what your capacity is to serve and the number of people you can serve. And then obviously you're going to give us a narrative. You just kind of read through this, your agency's experience, who's going to be the key individuals with this program experience, and what is your experience with doing other programs, what's your relationship with the DHS office and with the local workforce providers. This is, go through your program design. What I want to point out here is if you're looking at targeting multiple sectors, say you want to serve 4 or 5 different sectors, we just want you to, that's fine, we just want you to prioritize your sectors. So when we're looking at making sure we have good distribution of sector training representation and logistics, this is what we're going to look at. So if we have 2 individuals, two CBOs that are both doing manufacturing and they're side by side, but one of the other CBOs is also doing IT and healthcare, we may align the one CBO that's just doing manufacturing as a manufacturing hub, and the other one would do healthcare and IT. We just want, like I said, we just want to make sure we have good distribution on services. So that's why we want you to prioritize your services. You're going to be doing the monitoring. Now this training program format, if you're offering, say, 5 or 6 different sector training, then you're going to fill out 5 or 6 of these, depending upon, how many you're offering. So your training program format is specific to the training program that you're offering. And in this particular area, this is where you're going to tell us what the occupation, the end result occupation is, and the existing wage rate, and approximate average cost for that training. But also, this is where you're going to provide us with the acceptance requirements. So what is the academic baseline and any physical baselines that's required for this training program? So if it's a manufacturing and you require a 6th grade reading level and you require a drug test for them to be able to be accepted, then we need to know that. Now, I know some CBOs, specifically I know on one in manufacturing, that they require, they have a bridge program. So anybody that is 6th grade or between 6th grade and 8th grade reading level, they can put in the bridge program. And as far as the drug testing, it's not something they require for entry, but in manufacturing, to be placed with an employer, you have to be able to pass the drug test. But it isn't necessarily a requirement for entering the training program. So, and then once again, give us an idea of what you're anticipated for your training cohorts, if it's an open enrollment or if it's going to be based upon cohorts. And, the models, if Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3, your anticipation start dates. Your list of employers. Now, we do have a work experience component with this, too. You don't have to do work experience, but it's something that's a great resource for these individuals. So if you're offering work experience, who are the employers? And this is This is something that is a secured placement. So if it's a secured placement, that's related to the work experience component. And this isn't a permanent placement with the employer. Is this something that's going to be a permanent placement with them? The secured placement relates to the work experience component of it. Now, it's very difficult to get a secured placement in a permanent job. So when you're filling this out for the secured placement, just indicate if it's a yes for the work experience component of it. And then you're going to provide your partners. Who are your, if you have training partners, who are they, what's their roles, what supportive services are you looking at providing, and are they being provided by the agency, by a partner, or both? Those are the key components of this application I just really wanted to point out. But any questions you have, like I said, when you're getting into this to fill it out, please post them in the FAQ section in workNet. So at this point, I am going to go back. We'll take a look at questions. If you have no questions, we're done with the presentation. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to getting a lot of response to this. I think this is a great opportunity for the state of Illinois to really design something that's going to be a model nationally. And this is being looked at very heavily on the national sector, so it's a great opportunity for us to really have a chance to shine. So thank you guys so much. Let me get back to the questions. Just a sec. Okay, looks like we only have a few that have not been answered. On the intent to apply, number 11, doesn't this training also refer to job readiness training and our employability development training? I'd have to take a look at that. Let me respond to that in the FAQ, because I'll have to take a look at the intent to apply, but that would be my guess. Yes, it would, but I'll respond to this in the FAQ in workNet. What is the ratio of customer versus career navigator? That is something that you have to determine. That's based upon your program design. So that's something that you're going to let us know of what that ratio is. We're not defining a specific ratio. It depends upon your program. So once again, thank you everybody for participating. We are finished with the presentation. Make sure you download all of the files under the file for download. And the SNAP ENT presentation in the blue that's in the middle on the lower section, that is the integrated career academic presentation. Take a look at that. And once again, we will be posting those bridge programs and the ICAP programs to workNet. Thanks again. Have a great day.